H-Town, and welcome to the H-Town Horseshoe, a production birthed out of the Mayor's Office of Communication. I am Rebekah Williams, the Supervisor for Ceremonial Documents, home of #Prognation. Okay?
I know that's right. And I'm Michelle Duvall, the Mayor's Social Media Manager, and we have not one, but two special guests today. Director of Government Relations, Bill Kelly, and Deputy Director, Alexa Aragonez.
It's the 88th Texas legislative session, and your roles that you cause you to spend a lot of time at our Austin, at our state capitol. Tell us about what your roles, your responsibilities are, and how much impact you're making in this legislative session.
So I think when folks kind of realize what our job is, it's a little bit easier to understand how common sense and common ground a lot of our work is. Mm. There are 34 committees in the Texas House. There are 17 in the Texas Senate. We've got over 25 different divisions and departments within the city of Houston. So all of our departments operate underneath state law. And so when there is something that's prohibiting our departments from working well, we try and change state law to help them provide that service more efficiently for Houstonians on it. And so that's really the system that we have. And I think when folks realize, oh, you're primarily up there, looking at it's not just urban affairs, which you would think would be our planning department.
Right.
We are doing everything from animal control policy to annexation, from policing policy to fire codes, from tax and taxi policy, and then and we obviously care a great deal about the state budget because we receive some funding from that. So it's a wide range. It's probably the single widest broadband of anybody before the state ledge. Mm-hmm. And so really we just try and do our best to represent those city departments and divisions and help them do their jobs better.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I know that a lot of funding went towards mental health, public safety, and addressing the criminal court backlog. Can you talk to me more about those priorities and how you're advocating at the Capitol on behalf of Mayor Turner and the city?
So let's zoom out real quick. Mm-hmm. So every legislative session, the city council adopts by public vote a set of legislative principles. Okay. So these legislative principles are kind of your left and right orders, and this helps us as the government relations team operate within those right and left orders. So it's kind of a guiding document, as you will. I mean, there's a there's a laundry list of things within that legislative principles document, and you can find that just as a quick plug on the HoustonTX.gov/GOVT relations website. Here you can also find a lot of information on what we do. Every single piece of written testimony is uploaded to this, so take a look at that if you're interested in learning more. But this legislative principles document is basically our guiding force when we're there in the legislative capitol. So now back to a legislative priority, which is a little bit more zoomed in. Okay. So a good example of that is bandit signs. Last legislative session, Senate Bill 355 by Senator Boris Miles would have increased fines on bandit signs that cities could impose on repeat offenders. And to be clear, we're talking about those we're not talking about political signs. We're not talking about lost dog signs or garage sale signs. We're talking about those mass-produced commercial business advertisement signs, the "We Buy Houses" signs that are exactly.
Okay.
They clog our drains, create litter, and they're just not good for the city. Mm-hmm. So repeat offenders are purposely just going out and pow, 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 just putting these things back in the ground. And we as the city are left with the price tag of picking them up, picking up when they clog our drains, picking them up when they're decreasing visibility on roadways. And we have a team, the Department of Neighborhoods, shout out, that does a really good job of keeping our city clean and free from these signs. But unfortunately, these repeat offenders are just paying that sticker price of $500 a fine, which unfortunately they just consider as the cost of doing this.
Exactly.
Like a slap on the wrist. Exactly what I'm talking about. So they just think, oh, whatever. What's $500? I make way more in the purchase and resale of a house. So why not keep sticking these in? So we as the city of Houston are thinking, well, why not? Let's add a zero to that fine. So let's make it $5,000 and hit them where it hurts in the pocketbooks and make sure that we as the city of Houston can minimize litter, minimize clutter in our roadways, and really uplift every single neighborhood.
That's cool.
That is
That's cool. Look, great work. Look, great Great work, great work. And speaking of the great work, you both kind of have alluded to this. You work directly with the departments here, especially in the mayor's office, 25 departments. Give us an example for our listeners, because you have to understand, it's people out here that they're hearing you talk, but they still don't have a clue.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
As to what's happening here. So let's bring it home. So the departments here in the mayor's office, give us an example of your direct correlation with any one of our departments, so our audience can really see, like, we see how that works and how that correlates.
Right.
So I'll give you a good example from the largest city department.
Okay.
And y'all know the largest department, the city of Houston, is the police department,
Yes.
HPD.
Yes.
So in September 20th, 2021, so after the last session, we had an uptick in violent crime. And so HPD was working hard to deliver warrants, and senior officer Bill Jeffrey was delivering one of those warrants. It was a narcotics warrant. So he knocks on the door to be able to deliver this warrant to somebody that hadn't shown up in court. Court date was in January. And he knocks on the door, and within 3 seconds, there are over 30 bullets fired.
Oh,
Wow.
There was he was killed in the line of duty. He'd been with HPD 31 years, and had been assigned to the division that issues these warrants. So he was a very experienced officer.
Right.
So the individual that shot him was using what was called a Glock switch. So what this Glock switch is, everybody's kind of familiar with a handgun,
Right,
and
yeah.
so
Right.
you've got a regular handgun, and they're most of them are what are called semi-automatics, which means every time you pull the trigger, there's a bullet. You don't have to like recock. It's just bang,
Bang, bang.
bang, bang, right?
Okay.
So what these Glock switches do is they're little plastic devices that are put on the back of the gun that turn it into a fully automatic, which by definition is a machine gun.
Oh.
And so this person with a extended magazine on their handgun pointed it at our officer and just squeezing the trigger, and literally you can't even aim when you're doing that. It's just so violent because it's shooting up to 30 shots in 3 seconds.
Right.
Right. And so these, what we discovered in working with HPD is that these devices are illegal on the federal level,
Right.
but at state law, they have to be attached to a gun in order to be considered a machine gun. So if we pull somebody over that they've gone and 3D printed a whole bunch of these Glock switches,
Right.
and we see them in the front seat of their car,
You can't do anything.
technically it's not against state law right
Oh,
now.
my God.
And so what we want to do is amend the definition of machine gun to include these devices, because that's
Right.
all these devices do, is allow people to fire a ridiculous amount. In fact, ABC 13, and we give them credit, they did a really good story in the wake of this killing of our Officer Jeffrey, where they went to a firing range. And the firing range folks are a lot like my dad, where they're gun folk, right?
Right,
And this
right.
guy was like, look, we have one that's they have a federal license for it. They have
Yeah.
it legally. He said, people don't use it. It's a waste of ammo, and you literally can't even aim because
Yeah.
it's so violent
Right.
in the kickback on it. So this is something that Chicago has seen a whole lot of.
Right.
We've seen our seizure of these different devices go from 33 in one year to over 150 the next.
Wow.
There is absolutely no reason why any legal gun owner or supporter of the Second Amendment would have one of these.
Right.
Right. And so that's what we're going to work toward. That comes directly from a tragedy that happened in our largest department. And I want to work, and again, that's kind of illustrative of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to work to make sure our departments can function better.
Right.
And one of the things that I want to give credit to our HPOU friends on this, they take the perspective of, look, our officers have this in the back of their mind whenever they approach somebody on a traffic stop,
Yeah.
that they could have one of these, and that's in the back of their mind. That makes the officer less safe. That makes
Yes.
that motorist less safe. And the way these things are going, you can't even aim. It makes the community less safe.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a big, big deal that we're going to try and work on this session on it. And I really hope that we can make it, because that is a big public safety measure that
Yes.
comes directly out of something that happened in our department on there. So I know that that's a very serious issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But
Yeah.
but it
Thank you for
and if
that.
we're able to do that,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard to prove what doesn't happen when something passes. But
Right.
it's going to be it's clear what's happened right now under state law, and that's
Right.
why it needs to change.
And I don't care where you come from or where you live. Senate Bill 147 is just downright wrong.
So, last month, Mayor Turner and other elected officials gathered on the steps of City Hall to oppose SB 147. Can you talk to me about what that bill is exactly and what you guys are doing at the Capitol about it?
Yeah, of course. So first, thank you to Mayor Turner, Representative Wu, and everyone that joined us on the steps of City Hall, because that force, that joined power together really speaks to a collective voice of why this bill is bad. So let's dive into a little bit of the detail. So Senate Bill 147, in plain terms, would prohibit the purchase or acquisition of title to real property by certain foreign individuals or entities. So this means that neither government entities, companies, or citizens of China, Iran, North Korea, or Russia are able to purchase real estate here in Houston, Texas. And you can imagine that if a bill like that passed, it would greatly negatively impact the lives of so many Houstonians, like the hundreds of thousands of people of Chinese descent that live here in the greater Houston area.
Right.
And it's just plain bad policy.
Right.
It's discriminatory, and it's bad economics.
Mm-hmm.
So our strength is our diversity, and Bill and I work to protect that diversity every single day in Austin. So he and I are engaging with key legislators and telling them the Houston story, the Houston impact of this bill. Mm-hmm. And we're really encouraging our other cities to take a deeper dive and look inward to see how this bill would affect their communities. So that's just one of the things that Bill and I are doing to just fight this bad bill. And unfortunately, so many others that get filed during legislative session.
Wow, that's really something. So I heard you say when Mayor Turner and the other elected officials gathered, that kind of helped. So how can regular citizens help in that way for different types of bills?
Yeah, so I think first thing is always to be informed. I think the HoustonTX.gov/GOVT relations website is a great source of information on what's going on here that could impact your lives here in the city of Houston. But it's important for us as people that elect these officials to stay engaged in the process. So they can even go onto the Legislative Online website to look at what the bills have been filed, to see if anything, you could type in some keywords and basically just follow the process. Because the only way to keep people accountable is looking at their voting records.
Right. Definitely. All right, so listen, y'all took us deep. We're going to lighten the load here. Okay. We're going to bring it up. Okay. So we're going to play a game.
Yep.
Okay. Cool game we have here. It's 5 questions in 10 seconds.
Can you do it?
I believe y'all can do it.
Okay, first of all, Bill and I both talk very slow.
It's, hey, no Southern drawl here.
Despacito.
So what's going to happen, myself and Michelle are going to ask you questions. You have 10 seconds. Michelle's going to keep time.
Oh, you're actually keeping time on this?
Oh, yeah, this is real.
No.
We're trying to see how many you all can answer.
Okay.
You all are very eloquent. Y'all can handle it.
And since it's 2 of you playing at one time, my questions will be directed towards Bill. Her questions will be directed.
Let's go right here.
You ready?
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right, channel it in. Channel it in. All right, so Michelle, let us know.
I'll start the time after I ask the first question.
Oh, no cheating.
That's not cheating.
Here we go.
Okay, when does the Texas Legislature convene?
The legislature convenes. I wish it was every 140 years for 2 days, but instead it's every 2 years for 140 days. Start on January the 6th. It's always the second Tuesday.
You took the whole thing.
You said 10 seconds. I'm going to take 10 seconds.
That's 10 seconds for 5
questions, Bill.
Oh, the whole time?
That is funny.
I thought we got 10 for each.
No.
Point of order. Point of order. Point of order.
It's okay. No worries about the seconds. We're still going to ask the questions.
Yeah.
All right.
Great information.
Of course.
Yeah, great information. So check this out. So here we go. Name 3 main functions of the legislature.
So that is to create new laws for the well-being and safety of citizens, oversee the implementation of laws, and pass a budget.
Come on.
So, what are 5 ways to kill a bill?
Bill.
You can burn it. You can flush it. You can. There's a lot of ways. What's interesting, obviously you can have the governor veto it. You can have die in committee. You can do a number of different deals with it. But I think it's interesting on there, not to just diatribe off the question. The legislature is built not to pass bills.
Yeah.
It's only 140 days every 2 years. If we wanted to pass a bunch of stuff, we'd have this long and deal. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. So there's only one bill that has to pass each time. and that's the budget. So that's
Oh, wow.
yeah. So there's a lot
That's
of ways.
good information
Was that
to-
Seth Rogen or Seth?
Rogen.
Who's the guy?
Seth Rogen?
No, the guy from Family Guy.
Which one?
Seth
know.
MacFarlane.
Okay.
He's got 100 ways to die in the West. There's 100 ways to kill a bill during the legislative session.
And Bill knows
Yeah.
all
He
about
There
it.
you
knows
go.
all about the bill.
Okay, then.
Okay. Why does the Texas legislature meet every 2 years?
So back in olden times.
Olden
Olden
times.
times.
Olden times of the 1800s. It was super difficult for folks from all across Texas to make it the way to Austin,
Horse a
which
buggy.
I will footnote. It's still difficult for all of us to
Right.
get to Austin. I mean, think about the folks in Amarillo or El Paso, and they just have to trek. Anyway, and now we got air. We got plane, trains, and automobiles. So
Right.
back in the 1800s, it was super difficult. So these folks said, "Well, let's not meet every year, and instead, let's just meet every 2 years."
Okay.
And because of that, it's a little bit longer than some other states on how long we convene. But they pass a budget for 2 years, and they said, "Okay, peace. I'll see you next odd number year in January, the second January, Bill,
Second Tuesday.
the second Tuesday. It's not the second January, second Tuesday of January." So
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So how can people speak during these legislative sessions?
So this is actually a kind of an interesting deal. You have to be at the Capitol.
Okay. You got to pull up.
You got to be
Okay.
at the Capitol in person,
Right.
And then they have these kiosks outside of committee rooms, and so you're able to put in your name and information. And what's funny is they actually realize that they have a lot of frequent flyers, like the city of Houston.
Yeah, we
And
do.
so we actually that you can save your information in these kiosks, and then you're able to go through and just pull up your signature on there. So it's literally just registering up there when there's a committee hearing on the kiosk, and then you're able to go in and say your piece.
And of course, I just want to add to that. Of course, that is a barrier for a lot of people to go to Austin. I mean, you have to have time off. You have to make sure that you know where the kiosks are. The Capitol is
Have
an
a place to
interesting
stay out there.
You know, the Capitol's not super accessible. So if you're a wheelchair user, you got to use the elevators. If you have a walker,
Right.
you got to use the elevators. And those
By the
things
way,
are packed.
Here's pro tip. The main elevators in the Capitol,
Uh-huh.
men's and women's restrooms directly behind
I
them.
think that's key. That's key.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Gotta know where the
gotta-
bathrooms
you
are.
gotta
Right.
know.
Gotta know.
Saying.
but you got to make time to actually go.
Yeah.
And if that's just not possible for you, find maybe an organization.
I was going to ask that. Like, what
Exactly.
organizations do you all know that actually assist people with participating, actually using their right to
I
be
don't.
civically
I don't know if
engaged?
there's really a lot of general ones,
Uh-huh.
but there's a lot of issue-oriented organizations
Okay.
that
Yeah.
do lobby at the Capitol.
Right.
So making sure that you're plugged in with those folks, and then if you can't do that, call up your legislators, figure out what committees they're on, see what bills are coming up on their calendar, and just call them up and say, "Hey, I can't file on this bill, but I want you to know as my representative that I do or do not like this bill."
So can people volunteer?
You can, and I would give this. This is a great organization that you can get involved with that you can tell is smart because it's run by women.
Okay.
The League of Women Voters.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
League of
they're
Women
amazing.
Voters,
Yeah.
Greater Houston, does a fantastic
They are
job.
good.
Yeah.
They do a very nonpartisan job, so
Yes.
you don't see them get involved in a lot of partisan issues.
Right.
But they do. They're a big transparency organization. They work to try and make sure that voters know the issue stances for candidates ahead of elections.
Right.
And then they like to inform a whole lot during the session as well. So a big shout out. If you're looking to get involved, I would totally look at League of Women Voters Houston. They have a great organization. Dr. Annie over there is fantastic. So I know her name's Dr. Annie Benefield, but
Yeah. But you know her personally, so you're doing
she
that.
is she is fantastic. So big plug for them if you're looking to get involved for the first time.
So when does this legislative session end?
It will end, I believe, on June 4th.
Man, Bill's already going to June. I have no clue. I'll tell you what, ladies. All I know that there is about 120 some days left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 140 days after June the 6th, because that was June the 6th was the
January
excuse me,
6th.
January 6th.
Well, you know what? Thank you both for the work that you do, the
Yes.
sacrificing, leaving your families to go live up there in Austin to
Right.
advocate for the people of Houston and Mayor Turner. Do you guys have any final thoughts or words?
Well, I'll let you take that one.
I would end with this. The issues before the legislature are a lot less partisan than people think. They're a whole lot more urban, rural, suburban, and there's a whole lot more in common between our inner city and our rural friends. Like, for example, on internet access, when you look at the rural communities' lack of choice and the lack of choice in some neighborhoods, like the neighborhoods that Mayor Turner lives in Anchor Home, there are a lot more similarities between that. So when you go up there, have the perspective that this isn't a D versus R fight, that this is going to be an issue by issue and interest group by interest group kind of work on there. So there's a lot of ways to be able to help.
And one thing I would like to do is just say thank you to every single department here in the city of Houston. They really dive into every single bill that gets filed in the Texas legislative session, and they let us know what's the dollar figure, how is this going to impact us, how is this going to impact service delivery, you know, is this going to affect us constitutionally, like what's going on that way. So I want to thank every single analyst in the city of Houston that's looking at these bills. Thank you for flagging them. Thank you for analyzing them. And thank you to Bill and the rest of the government relations team, Andy Matei and Desmond Taylor. And big thank you to Mayor Turner, of course, always for championing us and for his wisdom when he was a legislator. So thank you guys.
Yeah, hashtag teamwork.
Yes, teamwork. It makes the dream work. Yes. So excited. Look, y'all make me smile. And thank you so much for just really breaking that down, especially for our listeners, and making, bringing everything home for us all. And our hope is that people become more engaged with this information that you've given today. And especially you have really got my heart with the officer story and the, what are they called? Say the
Glock switches.
Glock switches.
Yeah.
So y'all, if y'all see these things, let's flag these things because they're out here and a lot of people don't even know the language, don't even know what it is, but I need you to Google it. So if you see these things, you can let our law enforcement know so we can get these things off the street. But thank y'all so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the H-Town Horseshoe.